Best backs in the Big Ten 2023 edition right here at the Voice of College Football. Please like the video, share the videos out on social media, and subscribe. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. We are going to run down our honorable mention and our top 10, maybe with a few surprises included. Let's look at a couple guys that moved on from 2022 that will be sorely missed by their teams. Chase Brown, one of the top 3 rushers in all of college football, moves on from Illinois. Of course, we got Mo Ibrahim, one of the most prolific backs in the history of the conference, leaving Minnesota. Evan Hull, despite Northwestern's struggles, at 1-11, accounted for over 2,700 yards. He moves on from the Wildcats. Now, on to the honorable mentions. They include Caleb Johnson of Iowa, ran for almost 800 yards, 5.2 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns last season, could probably be used more out of the backfield in space with only 4 receptions as a freshman. Highlighted the year with over 200 yards rushing against Purdue. Also on the honorable mention list would be Cam Porter of Northwestern, ran for 619 yards and 7 touchdowns for the Wildcats in his career, looking to break out in replacing Evan Hull. Jalen Berger, former Wisconsin Badger, now a Michigan State Spartan, ran for 683 yards and 6 touchdowns with 19 catches out of the backfield for the Spartans as Michigan State tries to bounce back from 5-7. Former Clemson Tiger Chez Mellusi probably was a top 10 back in this conference just a couple years ago before Braylon Allen passed him by. Mellusi complimented Allen 2 years ago very well with 815 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns in 2021. He will look to wrestle carries away from one of the best backs in college football, Braylon Allen. Dallin Hayden rushed for over 500 yards as a true freshman for Ohio State, but it was his 146-yard rushing effort against Maryland that saved the Buckeyes from disaster on the road against the Terps. Dallin Hayden then, the next week against Michigan, disappeared. He only had 2 rushing attempts against the Wolverines. Why, we don't know. Then Dallin Hayden came back against one of the best rushing defenses in all of college football, Georgia, in the playoff game, and accounted for 9 carries and 43 yards. Dallin Hayden could break through in a very crowded Ohio State backfield. We've got 2 newcomers to the Big Ten, both out of the state of Michigan. Cole Cabana, the 10th-rated running back, according to 247 Sports, probably won't factor into the Wolverines' plans here in 2023, but he could be a star down the road. Darius Taylor, the 23rd-rated running back in the country, goes to Minnesota, and of course, with Mo Ibrahim gone, could possibly break through. Now let's get to the top 10 in the conference, starting with Purdue's Devin Mockobee. I love how this guy runs. He doesn't shy away from contact. He initiates contact. He loves collisions. He ran for almost 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns as a sophomore. He ripped off 5 100-yard games, including 112 against a stout Minnesota rush defense and 108 against the Badgers, who were also strong always in the front 7. Number 10 in the Big Ten, Devin Mockobee, Purdue. At number 9, we go to the second of 2 backs at Penn State. That, of course, Kaytron Allen, who, for just about any other team in college football in 2022, would have been a rising star, would have been the guy with the target on him, with all the focus and the hype. But since Nick Singleton was part of that recruiting class, Kaytron Allen, discarded by many, but he was the 15th-rated running back in the class of 22. And he scored 2 touchdowns on the road against Auburn to get his career really jump-started in a big game for Penn State. I know Auburn was not a good football team at 5-7. However, Tigers talented on defense with a lot of NFL players there. Kaytron Allen, almost 900 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns, 5.2 per carry, 20 receptions out of the backfield, and he scored a touchdown in the Rose Bowl. Our number 9 back in the Big Ten is just a sophomore. He is Kaytron Allen. At number 8 in the Big Ten, we go to Columbus, and the Buckeyes' Mayan Williams ran for 14 touchdowns, over 800 yards, and with Travion Henderson on the shelf for much of 2022, it was Mayan Williams' deal. He carried the ball for 7.2 yards per carry in 2021, and that set him up for a nice 2022 season. However, in the Indiana game, he was having a huge day against the Hoosiers, but had a lower body injury that led into the Michigan game and pretty much rendered him useless against the Wolverines. Mayan Williams, our number 8 running back, hopefully healthy here in 2023. Now let's go to number 7 and one of the best all-purpose backs in the Big Ten, and that's Roman Hemby of Maryland. Ran for almost 1,000 yards He had 5.3 yards per carry, had 4 100-yard rushing games for a team, of course, that is going to draw the attention on the outside with Talia Tagovailoa throwing it downfield to Deshaun Jones and a host of talented receivers there at Maryland. Roman Hemby could be geared and ready for a big season for the Terps in 2023. Our 6th-rated running back in the Big Ten, we go out to Nebraska and look at a running back who, as a freshman with the Huskers, only had 5 rushing attempts the entire season, and then he broke out in a big way. Had a big spring, a big fall camp that led to his starting role coming out of the gate in week 0 against Northwestern, and he ripped up the Wildcats for over 100 yards and really started the season strong with 101, 189, 138, and 136 in his 5th game against Indiana. That's Anthony Grant of Nebraska. Almost 1,000 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns, caught 18 out of the backfield. The one disappointing stat for Anthony Grant would be 4.2 yards per carry. Much of that had to do with a weak Husker offensive line that is supposed to be improved this season. Again, a hot sophomore start for Anthony Grant. He looks to break it past the 1,000-yard mark. A bowl game would help Nebraska fans for the first time since 2016. Our number 6 running back in the Big Ten, Anthony Grant, GBR. Our number 5 running back in the Big Ten might have had the most hype going into 2022. He was the number 1 rated running back in the country coming out of high school. He delivered as a freshman, including an all-time freshman record at Ohio State, 270 yards on the ground against Tulsa, 1248 for the season, and 19 touchdowns as a freshman. Of course, we're talking about Travion Henderson. However, the fleet running back, who's one of the fastest in the land, pulled up lame early in the season, had a bad foot, still picked up 121 yards rushing against a tough Badger defense, 118 against Michigan State, but limited to just about 500 yards on the ground and limited, useless down the stretch for Ohio State. Looking for a big bounce back, looking for health, number 5 in the Big Ten, Travion Henderson, Ohio State. He was a 5-star coming out of high school. He was hyped, and he delivered. Nick Singleton of Penn State, our number 4 running back in the Big Ten, gained over 1,000 yards on the ground, gave way to Katron Allen. So what a complimentary situation they had in Happy Valley, and now they're both sophomores. So in week 2 or 3 of the season, they go to Auburn with Allen and Singleton, not tested against a strong defense and against a hostile environment, and they both delivered, especially Nick Singleton with 124 yards against Auburn, and then he was off to the races. Concluded 2022 with 120 yards on just 7 attempts against Utah in the Rose Bowl. Nick Singleton is off to a stellar start in his career with Penn State and looking, of course, for big accomplishments both individually and in terms of a team for Penn State in 2023. Our number 4 running back in the Big Ten, Nick Singleton. Now we go to our top 3 running backs in the Big Ten. And our number 3 guy was arguably the best player in all of college football in 2022. But I've got him number 3 at running back in the Big Ten in 23. He almost won a Heisman. A lot of people thought he was headed in that direction before he got hurt late in the second quarter at home against Illinois. He had racked up 108 yards against a strong Illinois defense. And that's, of course, Blake Corum. Even despite missing 3.5 games, so he missed the Ohio State game, half the Illinois game, the Purdue Big Ten Championship game, and the national semifinal against TCU, still ran for 1,463 yards and 18 touchdowns with 8 consecutive 100-yard games. Consider that if Blake Corum doesn't run for 243 yards against Maryland in Michigan's Big Ten opener and a 1-score win against the Terps, maybe the Wolverines get upset at home against Maryland. But now we've got Blake Corum coming off an injury, having to share time with Donovan Edwards, who might be a better back. But he's one of the best in the land. He's one of the best in the Big Ten. And this Big Ten backfield, out of those 14 teams, is loaded. Our number 3 running back in the Big Ten, Blake Corum. That leads us to our number 2 running back in all the Big Ten. And we go to Wisconsin, where they just churn out the great running backs. And they've been doing that ever since Barry Alvarez took over in the early 90s, actually 1989, and of course Wisconsin broke out with a Rose Bowl win in 1993. But the line of historic Wisconsin running backs is amazing, and this is the most recent, and he's amazing himself. Braylon Allen is a 17-year-old playing Big Ten football, took over for Chez Mellusi, who's an accomplished back himself, who's really good and still has a bright future. And Braylon Allen just took it over and ran, not just dodging guys, but was a physical back in the Big Ten at 17 years old as a freshman. Ran for 1,242 yards and 11 touchdowns, almost mirrored that his freshman season at 6.8 yards per carry and 12 touchdowns, 8 100-yard games in 2021, 15 in his career. He is a monster. He ran for 165 yards against Ohio State at 7.2 yards per carry, a $1.16 to conclude a disappointing season for Wisconsin, but they won the bowl game to finish with a winning record at 7-6, and he ran for 116 yards against Oklahoma State. So in addition to the stats we just rolled out, consider this in Braylon Allen's account. He started as a freshman after 4 games taking over for Mellusi. He's got a Wisconsin attack that's loaded up on the run. The defenses know it. They load up the box to stop Braylon Allen. He's got a quarterback and a passing attack that was marginal at best, to be kind. One of the worst passing attacks in the Big Ten. And then on top of that, they run on first and second down. The defense knows what's coming, and he did not have a mobile quarterback to take off the pressure as well. Our number 2 running back in the Big Ten is Braylon Allen. On to our number 1 running back in the Big Ten out of Michigan. Not Blake Corum. It's Donovan Edwards, the former 5-star. Only had 27 attempts on the ground in his first 4 games. He was hurt. Blake Corum was the star. He was the guy carrying the mail. Then Edwards, as he got healthy, got worked into the lineup and started to take some of the pressure off of Blake Corum, started to assert himself. And then, of course, late in the season against Illinois, Corum goes down, and Donovan Edwards was a man when he needed to be the man. 173 yards against Penn State, 216 against Ohio State, 185 on the ground in the Big Ten championship game, 119 in the playoff game against TCU, including that burst in the first play of the game down the field. He ran for just under 1,000 yards. His 7.1 yards per carry completely dwarfs Blake Corum's 5.8 figure against the same competition. And if anything, Donovan Edwards did it against better competition at the end of the season in bigger ball games. Then also consider this, that Donovan Edwards is a complete back. He's a threat out of the backfield as a pass receiver. He broke onto the scene 2 years ago against Maryland, not as a rusher, but as a receiver, 10 catches for 170 yards against the Terps. But he was limited there. No, he wasn't limited. He was completely eliminated as a pass receiver because of the cast on his arm. So he's going to add that to his repertoire back in the fold in the skill set here in 2023. The number 1 running back in the Big Ten is not Blake Corum. It's Donovan Edwards of Michigan. Leave your comments below right here at the Voice of College Football. Let us know what positions you want us to rank, what you want us to rank overall. We're considering and continuing our series where we're running through our disputed national championships. We're in the poll era now, 1997, wink, wink, Michigan fans, all the way through back to 1936, the first year of the AP poll. We are going to release our all-time program rankings coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Exciting times here at the Voice of College Football as we go through a lot of all-time rankings, but get you set first and foremost for the 2023 season right here. Like the video, share the videos out on social media, and subscribe at the Voice of College Football.